We have been informed that we have a quorum for this afternoon session, so we will proceed with Article 17 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $223,276.47 through special assessments on property within the Mountain Home Park Special Benefit Assessment Tax District as approved by town meeting on March 24, 2007, and as delineated in the town ordinance entitled Municipal Act to Establish and Regulate the Mountain Home Park Special Benefit Assessment Tax District for the purpose of paying debt service on the capital improvements to the water and sewer lines serving the Mountain Home and Deepwood mobile home parks. The chair would call on Mr. Scholes.
I'm going to be an imposter.
Okay. The chair calls on Mr. DeGray.
Thank you. I move that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $223,276.47 through special assessment on property within the Mountain Home Park Special Benefit Assessment Tax District, as approved by town meeting March 24, 27, and as delineated in the town ordinance entitled Municipal Act to Establish and Regulate the Mountain Home Park Special Benefit Assessment Tax District for the purpose of paying debt service on the capital improvements to the water and sewer lines serving the Mountain Home and Deepwood mobile home parks.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $223,276.47 through special assessments on property within the Mountain Home Park Special Benefit Assessment Tax District, as approved by the town meeting March 24, 2007, and as delineated in the town ordinance entitled Municipal Act to Establish and Regulate the Mountain Home Park Special Benefit Assessment Tax District for the purpose of paying debt service on the capital improvements to the water and sewer lines serving the Mountain Home and Deepwood mobile home parks. Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please rise. You may be seated. All those opposed? And you have adopted Article 17. Article 18, to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $120,000 to support human service programs and facilities for the residents of Brattleboro, to be allocated among service providers in the following manner: Aid Project of Southern Vermont, $2,000. American Red Cross, New Hampshire and Vermont Region, $5,000. Brattleboro Area Adult Day Gathering Place, $4,000. Brattleboro Area Hospice, $1,200. Brattleboro Senior Meals, $7,000. Family Garden, $2,500. Green Mountain Crossroads, $5,000. Groundworks Collaborative, $20,000. Healthcare and Rehabilitative Services, $3,500. Kids Place, $4,000. Meeting Waters YMCA, $5,000. Senior Solutions, $3,000. Southeastern Vermont Community Action, SeVEDS, $12,000. Turning Point, $8,500. Vermont Adult Learning, $3,000. Vermont Center for Independent Living, $1,600. Visiting Nurses and Hospice of Vermont and New Hampshire, $12,200. Windham Child Care Association, $5,500. Windham County Safe Place Child Advocacy Center and Southeastern Unit for Special Investigations, $1,500. Windham Southeast Supervisory Union Summer Food Program, $6,000. Youth Services Big Brother Big Sisters, $7,500. Chair recognizes Mr. Allen.
Can I just say ditto?
You know, Mr. Allen, we're not going to, I'm going to do that with a reread, but you need to read the motion.
I'm just kidding. You can see who drew the short straw on this one. I move that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $120,000 to support human service programs and facilities for the residents of Brattleboro to be allocated among service providers in the following manner. AIDS Project of Southern Vermont, $2,000. American Red Cross, New Hampshire and Vermont Region, $5,000. Brattleboro Area Adult Day Gathering Place, $4,000. Brattleboro Area Hospice, $1,200. Brattleboro Senior Meals, $7,000. Family Garden, $2,500. Green Mountain Crossroads, $5,000. Groundworks Collaborative, $20,000. Healthcare and Rehabilitation Services, $3,500. Kids Place, $4,000. Meeting Waters YMCA, $5,000. Senior Solutions, $3,000. Southern Vermont Community Action Inc., SEVCA, $12,000. Turning Point, $8,500. Vermont Adult Learning, $3,000. Vermont Center for Independent Living, $1,600. Visiting Nurse and Hospice of Vermont and New Hampshire, $12,200. Wyndham Child Care Association, $5,500. Wyndham County Safe Place Child Advocacy Center and Southeastern Unit for Special Investigations, $1,500. Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union Summer Food Program, $6,000. Youth Services Big Brothers Big Sisters, $7,500.
Is there a second? Now, normally, Robert says I'm to restate the whole thing a third time, but with your permission, unless there's objection, it has been moved and seconded as just read by Mr. Allen. Is there any discussion? Hearing none? Oh, we have, okay. Chief Emery.
Dave Emery, District 3. I just have an easy question. I'm reading Brattleboro Area Hospice for $1,200, and then Visiting Nurse and Hospice of Vermont for $12,000. Are they two separate things, or what are they?
Is there a member of the administration or the Human Resources Board that can respond to that? Ms. Kornheiser is interrogated by Chief Emery.
Thank you. Emily Kornheiser. The Visiting Nurses Association of Vermont and New Hampshire is a two-state organization that provides visiting nurse services, ranging from services to support new parents to end-of-life hospice care. Part of their work is for-profit in terms of fee-for-services, and then they also charge Medicaid. And there's a long history of Vermont towns supporting the VNA at actually much higher levels than we support them here. The Brattleboro Area Hospice is a completely nonprofit end-of-life service that provides counseling, sort of deathbed services. I'm sorry, I don't know the right term for that. Bereavement services, thank you. And I'm sure there's someone here who could speak better to their incredible work on behalf of our specific community.
Further questions or debate with regard to this article? Yes, Ms. Hasegawa.
I was just curious about the decision not to fund the Boys and Girls Club this year.
Ms. Hasegawa interrogates Ms. Kornheiser.
The Boys and Girls Club did not apply for funds this year.
Further debate with regard to the Human Services budget? Hearing none, all those in favor, please rise. You may be seated. All those opposed, please rise. And you have adopted Article 18. Article 19. To see if the town will appropriate $1,000,000 $99,975 from the unassigned fund balance as of June 30th, 2016, as partial funding for the town's operating and capital expenses for fiscal year 2018. Chair calls on Ms. O'Connor.
Thank you. I move that the town appropriate $1,099,975 from the unassigned fund balance as of June 30th, 2016, as partial funding for the town's operating and capital expenses for fiscal year 2018.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the town appropriate $1,099,975 from the unassigned fund balance as of June 30th, 2016, as partial funding for the town's operating and capital expenses for fiscal year 2018. Does a member of the administration or board wish to be heard on this motion? Yes, Mr. Gartenstein.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As of June 30, 2016, if you look at page 93 of your town report, in the audit report, we have $2,792,759 in unassigned fund balance. That rainy day fund, which is now approaching $3 million, has accumulated as a result of a series of factors over the course of the last 5 or 10 years. 5 years, let's say. We have taken steps consistently to try to find areas where we can have savings on our municipal expenses. And some of the sources, most recently, that have allowed us to build up the surplus include our transition to every other week trash pickup, a change in the way we have been providing health insurance for our employees, essentially self-insuring a substantial part of the health insurance risk, changes in retirement benefits, energy efficiency savings, lower than expected fuel costs, and consistently, probably for 2, 3, 4, 5 years now, we've had less police officers actually employed than we have planned for on the force. So over the years, fund balance has accumulated. The fund balance this year at $2,700,000 and change is an increase of about $656,000 over last year's unassigned fund balance. Probably 4 or 5 years ago, we adopted a policy that we would try to maintain 10% of the town's operating budget in a savings account. So this year's budget is about $17 million. So our goal is to have about $1,700,000, 10% of the annual budget, in the savings account. It's very important for municipal planning purposes because in the event of an emergency, there's money available upon which we can draw. When Irene came through, we were lucky enough to have money in the bank, and so we were able to make necessary repairs promptly without having to borrow. Surrounding towns did not have that sort of money in the bank, and so their recovery from that emergency was significantly delayed. When the town manager prepared the draft budget that was presented to us, at the beginning of November. The original proposal was for us to spend $634,225 out of the fund balance. Things changed very quickly after the presentation of that initial budget because the pumper truck that's a necessary part of the fire department fleet no longer was inspectable. The truck that was purchased, how many years ago? 1998. 1998, so 19 years ago, was a commercial chassis, but it needed to be industrial strength. And trying to save money 20 years ago, we bought a commercial chassis and it didn't last. And so we're down a truck. And so the administration, town manager, working with the fire department, looked for alternatives. And you'll hear in the next article, recommended to us that we spend $550,000 for a combined pumper rescue truck. But what that illustrates is that there were changing needs from the time we began our budget work. And over the course of essentially 2 months, 2.5 months of budget planning, 10 or 12 meetings, we looked at dozens and dozens of policy decisions relating to expenses for the town that we'll talk about during the next item, and how to pay for those. Ultimately, we concluded that a total payment out of the fund balance of $1,099,975,000 would be a prudent expenditure from the fund balance in order to help defray our expenses, both for operating and capital, during fiscal year 18. During this year, we're going to be expending probably 30% of the budget total, $3.4 million, on various capital costs through debt service, through capital equipment, through capital projects. And the budgeting process we've been following has been working to integrate proportionate investments, realistic investments in capital going forward, so that we can maintain the capital infrastructure that's needed to provide services. At the end of the budgeting process, Select Board was communicating priorities about what we thought would be a reasonable tax increase given all the work we need to do operating in capital. And some of us were at higher tax increases, some of us were at lower tax increases. The town manager recommended to us tax increase of approximately 3.5 cents, which is a 2.9% increase, which is essentially identical to the increase this year in payments due on the police fire bond. This is the biggest year of payments on the police fire bond. And in order to achieve that tax increase, the $1,099,975 withdrawal from the fund balance allows us to achieve that level of tax increase and also keeps 10% in the fund balance going forward. So if we had taken more from the fund balance, we would have faced significantly higher tax increases in outlying years. To take less from the fund balance would have led to a higher tax increase this year, which we hope to avoid. And so based upon consideration of long-term planning related issues, trying to bulk up on our capital spending, and maintaining a reasonable tax rate and tax increase, we're recommending the withdrawal of $1,099,975 from the unassigned fund balance this year. If I could, I would ask the town manager if he's got anything to add to that.
Chair would recognize Mr. Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator and Mr. Chairman. I do have just one thing to add. I think David covered it thoroughly and accurately. But there's an important reassurance I'd like to offer to those of you who may be concerned that this sounds like an awful lot of fund balance. It is an awful lot of fund balance to use in any one year. The reason we're able to do it is because we had a larger than normal surplus last year. So there were funds available to be devoted primarily to capital purchases and capital projects to a greater degree than we normally are able to do without that having a property tax impact. And so that's where the priorities of this budget are, as we will talk about in the budget item next. A significant increase in the commitment to capital because we need to do that. We've been talking about that now for the last few town meetings, about the importance of raising up our annual level of commitment, both to equipment replacement and especially to infrastructure replacement, and then sustaining that at a higher level than where we've been in recent years. The reassurance I want to offer is that even though we are using this large amount of fund balance, proposing to you that we use this large amount of fund balance in this particular year because we have the opportunity to do that, we also are increasing the amount of real-time revenue, the cash that we collect from property taxes and other revenues. We're increasing the amount of those funds that we're committing to capital. So we're positioning ourselves to be able to sustain a higher level of ongoing commitment to our community's capital needs, even when we can't apply so much fund balance in a given year. Most years we won't be recommending anything nearly this high. The last couple of years the use of fund balance was a few $100,000 and then about $500,000. So $1 million worth of use of fund balance in a particular year is high. But during that same period of time, our real-time commitment of recurring revenues has gone from $260,000 2 years ago to $510,000 a year ago to $745,000 in the budget that's before you today. And so I hope that for those of you who may have entered the room, I know I've had some questions from some of you in the run-up to this meeting, isn't $1 million a lot to use all at once from fund balance? It is, and it wouldn't necessarily be a responsible thing to do if it was, in fact, I'll drop the necessarily. We've had some healthy conversation around this at board meetings. I would be strongly recommending to the board that we not spend this kind of fund balance on recurring costs, on operating costs, because we should collect that money from ourselves and pay it in real time and not borrow for just the basic operations of town government. But to use this larger than normal amount of fund balance in a year when we can, in order to accomplish a larger than normal amount of capital investment, I believe is not only wise but necessary given the significance of the needs that we face.
Further discussion with regard to Article 19. Mr. McGavey.
Would you respond to the 5 questions that I asked? And that are distributed. Most people should have it. It was a hard copy up front. A piece of paper says 5 questions on the wisdom of using surplus reserve funds. Each one of those questions is very relevant to this issue. And if you would respond, that would be appreciated.
A member of the administration is interrogated should they be willing to be. Mr. Elwell.
I'm going to give, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm going to give my answers. You've posed questions that really go to the heart of the policy-making process and the deliberations and the decisions of the Select Board. So I'll state each of your 5 questions, and I'll give you my observation as to the process that I participated in and what I witnessed in the decision-making process. I say that as much for the board members whom I serve as for you, Mr. Gavier, for the body, because I'd like you to be thinking, please, select board members, if there's anything I say that doesn't represent your perspective of how this happened, then you should speak up and say so. Question number one was, what happened to Brattleboro's economy in the last 18 months that destroyed the taxpayers' ability to pay the taxes it thought it could? What is the evidence of this remarkable decline? Was it noticed before the budget meetings? My answer to that is, thankfully, nothing happened in the last 18 months that destroyed our ability to pay. But in fact, that question is spot on with the comment I offered a few minutes ago that if we were proposing to use this magnitude of fund balance to fund basic daily operations, then I don't believe that would be a responsible recommendation. But that's not what's happening here. So we have the ability to pay for our basic daily operations. The budget that'll be before you on the next article calls for that level of real-time collection of revenues and investment in our basic services. The reason that this recommendation for $1 million worth of use of fund balances proposed in this article is because of the significant increase in our commitment to capital. Question two, is it sound fiduciary responsibility to return surplus reserves to offset taxes this year when it will be necessary to borrow it back from a bank next year or the year after at an additional $350,000 interest expense? I'm unsure, Mr. Agavi, of your calculation there, so I'm not going to speak to the specific math. But I think, again, it's in this recurring theme of we're not proposing commitments that will require additional borrowing. We're proposing to use the larger than expected amount of money. In our planning for where we would be right now, we didn't expect to have this much money in the savings account, in the fund balance, in the general fund. So by having some additional funds available, we're able to address identified needs, things that have been long deferred, both on the equipment side and on the project side, with this money. There is a portion of this in the final deliberations of the select board that could be reasonably characterized as property tax relief, but it's a very small portion. We're talking out of that $1 million, less than $150,000 that was in play during those final discussions in the last two select board meetings before this recommendation was finalized. So again, what's driving the magnitude of the item before you is the capital and not the operating. And for that reason, we don't think that it's overcommitting the town to anything that would require future borrowing. Question three, is it sound municipal financial practice to intentionally create significantly disparate tax rates in succeeding years? How do you reconcile creating disparate tax rates from one year to the next when you have just adopted a long-term budgeting practice to smooth out expenses for the purposes of stability? Here, actually, contrary to my initial advice to the board, the board actually made this more stable going forward. What I was initially recommending, because of what we had talked about in this meeting a year ago, and in the special meeting a year ago, when Representative Town Meeting approved the police fire facility projects, and then a week later approved the budget that was necessary to fund the incremental increase in the debt service that year. We talked at that time about the additional debt service hit that would arrive with this budget, and then decline slowly over the next 19 years after this. And the estimate that we came up with at that time, calculated at that time, it was carefully forecasted, was nearly 7%. I believe it was 6.8% was the, or cents rather, I'm sorry. 6.8 cents is what we thought would be the tax rate increase before you today. By the time we were proposing a budget back in October, it was down to 5.5 cents because of a variety of different things. The change in the garbage collection schedule and some of the other things that David Gartenstein spoke to. During the course of the budget process, the select board had made some changes to the budget that had reduced that down to 4.8 cents. So when we were in that final decision-making process, it could have been at 4.8 cents based on what the sequence of events I just described. which would have then, our forecast for next year was a 2-cent increase. What the Select Board has done by going to 3.5 cents with the recommendation before you today is bump next year's up to approximately 4 cents. And in today's forecast, obviously we have 12 months of real life to go through and additional adjustments that'll be made before we come to a number that'll be before you. But our best estimate right now is that there would be an additional tax rate increase next year of 4 cents for reasons that are discussed thoroughly in our long-term financial plan and other places that I think are not germane to this particular discussion right now. But the bottom line is you're right in being concerned that artificially lowering a tax rate in a given year when we really have obligations that we need to honor just for convenience, causing a spike, a reasonably expected spike in the following year, that would be not an appropriate best practice financially, but that's not what's happening in the proposal that's before the body today. Question 4, given the fearsome anticipated effects of the loss of federal funds to the state, is it sound fiduciary responsibility to voluntarily deplete all of our surplus reserves just before this loss may occur? There, I would suggest that 2 things. You heard from the school team this morning something that is equally accurate for us, which is that the relatively more recent developments on the federal level and the proposed federal budget have come about since these decisions were made and these documents were finalized to be proposed to you today. That's not a good enough reason not to modify them now if there was a good reason to modify them. My best advice to you is it's pure speculation where that process is going to end up in Washington. When they're done there, there's work to do in Montpelier. Surely there will be impacts. If there's going to be significant changes in how funds flow from the federal government through the state government to local governments, there will be significant impacts that we'll have to deal with, but we can't possibly know what those are right now. So again, I would suggest to you that if we were overly dependent on grants for our operating budget, just like if we were overly dependent on drawing down fund balance for our operating budget, we would be at much greater risk. We do have some grants that augment our operating funds, but the lion's share of the grants that we apply for and obtain relate more to the capital side of town government than to the operating side, and in many cases actually benefit the community through the program that we know to be among the most vulnerable in terms of what's changing, what is proposed to change federally. In many cases through the CDBG program, the Community Development Block Grant, we are just the fiscal agent. We are taking action on behalf of the community to seek funds and then receive funds and administer them that are actually spent by nonprofit organizations or private organizations doing economic development work in the community. So yes, there's great reason to pay close attention to what's happening in Washington and what will be happening in Montpelier. But I don't think there's anything that we know well enough right now, nor any area where we are so obviously vulnerable right now that it would warrant changing how we're approaching this particular year's budget. And question number 5 is, would it not make sense to leave the municipal tax at the level that conserves the surplus in a year that, because the school rate is unusually low, will contain the final combined school and town tax rate to a moderate and normal increase? And there I would just say that's a purely policy question. That's not about best financial practice, but just where the comfort level of this body is in having received its separate recommendations from the school board and the select board. And the select board members and I stand ready to help you work through that question on the next article.
Further comments by the Select Board? Further comments concerning Article 19 to see if the town will appropriate $1,099,975 from the unassigned fund balance as of June 30th, 2016 as partial funding for the town operating and capital expenses for fiscal year 2018. Is there further debate? Mr. Agavi? I don't see any other hand. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry, I do see another hand, and I'm going to take other people before anybody gets to talk twice. Mr. McEvil.
Daryl McKelvey, District 1. You just said that this fund was not going to be used for operational things. I think I just heard you say it was. That this is that? Do we read that? That may not have read that or heard that correctly. Can you clarify if the funds were going to be used for operational?
Member of the administration is interrogated.
Thank you. The language of the article is to appropriate $1 million, almost $1.1 million from the unassigned fund balance as partial funding for the town's operating and capital expenses. So it's both operating and capital. Primarily, I think the money is going towards capital. There are some operating expenses that would be covered from the fund balance. We did make a decision last year to allocate some of the surplus, what I call surplus fund balance, for tax relief over a 2-year period during the 2 years when the debt service for the police fire project would be highest. And there's a little bit of extra money this year that's going to smooth out the tax rate, like Peter said, 3.5 this year and about 4 cents anticipated next year before we do all of next year's budget work.
Further comments by Mr. Elwell. Okay.
Thank you. What Mr. Gartenstein just said accurately described the decision-making process that the board went through and the reasons why the board settled on this number as the one to recommend. Mathematically, actually, the full amount of the almost 1.1 million could be applied to capital. And that's why I've spoken about the matter in the manner that I did today, because it really, when you look at the broader picture of everything that's going on in the proposed budget, you know, this level of commitment out of the fund balance is really related in terms of our longer-term financial planning beyond just this year to raising up our commitment to capital and then maintaining it at a sustainable level. So I think it's fair to think about it in those terms, but what he's disclosed and what I spoke about briefly earlier too is that in that final decision-making process there was the possibility that they might have chosen to use a little less of the fund balance, but they decided to recommend what they have recommended because of the commitment that they made last year to smoothing in the impact of the debt service for the police fire, which is in itself a capital-related expense. The reason why the item, the article is worded in the manner that it's worded, where it refers to both capital and operating, and I apologize if that's confusing, especially in light of how we've been discussing this matter, is because this is one of the many sources of revenue. When we collect $17 million, there's the bulk of that is property taxes, but there's $1 million of it right here, and then there are rooms and meals taxes, and there's a number of other fees and other sources of revenue that come into the town. And so in order to just have this be represented within the town's overall budget as one of the general revenues coming into the general fund budget, we referred to it as being both for partial funding of both operating and capital, because otherwise it would have actually had to be a segregated amount to be applied in separate accounting strictly for those capital expenses. What we got going on here is more complicated than that, but at the end of the day, Mr. DeGray, it's about equal. The amount of fund balance we're asking for is about equal to the non-cash amount of capital expense that we're proposing.
Further questions or comments? Ms. Burke.
This is Jermaine, Molly Burke, District 2. I just wanted to comment on the concern about the federal funds. And you may have read that the legislature, as a backup, is considering that we may even need to have a special session in October once the federal budget comes through. And so at that point, if we did that, then the town would be more aware of what was happening statewide and certainly in the federal government. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. Reichman.
Franz Reichman, District 2. I got Mr. Agave's questions and the prefatory statements as well as an email the other day, and I did respond because I think they're very good questions and very important issues, and they were discussed at length during the Select Board's budget hearings in the fall and coming into the winter, which we on the Finance Committee tracked pretty closely as to what was going on. And I think Mr. Elwell's remarks reflect pretty closely what our committee thought in our evaluation of the budget, which was that this is appropriate use of fund balance. There was some, I'm not sure disagreement's the right word, but diversity of opinion initially as to how much of the fund balance should be used in this budget year. And indeed, less of fund balance could be used, but to balance the budget, we'd be looking at a higher tax rate this year. So if this body wants to increase the size of the tax increase this year, we could set aside more money for next year, which we may end up needing if some of the worst case scenarios from Washington actually do come our way. I think it's extremely important, as you raised, to keep an eye on that, and I think it's something for our committee to look at as the year is going on, and certainly something for the administration to look at as the year goes on. But based on everything that's happened thus far, and not saying that this is the only right answer, but I think the proposal is a right answer in terms of use of fund balance for the coming year. Thank you.
The question, do I have another hand there? The question is, shall the town appropriate $1,099,975 from the unassigned fund balance as of June 30th, 2016, as a partial funding for the town's operating and capital expenses for fiscal year 2018? Are you ready for that question? Yes, Mr. Dimes.
Kurt Dimes, District 2. I think our honorable chairman was, chairman of the board, that is, was correct to point out that the fund balance was very important in defraying the emergency expenses incurred by the, what was it, the raining storm Sandy? No, Irene, yeah. And I think such a thing could happen again. There are two storms waiting and hovering over us now, one centered with its eye in Washington, and the other, the eye of the other hurricane will come from the Atlantic, but it could be bigger than the last time. So the long time-honored principle of keeping a 10% balance on hand could be outdated. We don't know how big the next storm is going to be. Maybe we ought to keep more money on hand for next time. There is, you found a resolution on your seats this morning that's from Mr. Harvey, not from me, but it addresses the issue of climate change and I don't know what kind of change Mr. Trump is going to do, but in one package. We ought to consider those two things together now before we reduce our fund balance, I believe.
Further debate. Mr. Agave.
I don't feel I really heard an answer as to why it was prudent to not save the $1.1 million, although it adds to this year's tax rate for sure, and avoid a large interest payment later on. I got that number, by the way, of $350,000 from the town finance director. I called him and asked, what would we pay right now if we had to take out that kind of a bond at today's interest rate? So I'm still not clear on why it isn't prudent to save that money and then to save that amount of interest later on. Or, I mean, if we wanted, we could just use it as you're saying, you're using some of that money now to pay for capital expenses, so save it and use that money next year to pay for capital expenses. I would like to add, on the last question of, or the question number 4, about what may be coming down the pike with the federal budget and how that may impact us. Essentially, I hear you saying we will worry about it when the time comes. And that took me back about 13, 14 years when, as a member of the Planning Commission, we had just completed that 10-year town plan, and at the end of it, we had included an actual strategic plan, and that was removed by the select board at the time, with one of the board members saying, if we have a strategic plan that directs us of how to go forward specifically, we can't do it. It ties our hands. And then added, we can't plan for the future because we don't know what's going to happen. And my mouth fell open, and I just shrugged and said, okay, that's the way it is. The last point, and this, I feel, is more important than all of them. And it's something, it didn't occur to me till I had this written and sent out. This money that we're talking about, this $1.1 million, is tax money. It is money that has been collected from everybody in this town that pays taxes, which is just about everybody, whether you're paying it on your property or through your rent. In fact, I think, I don't know if the tax rates on a rental property are a little higher, so renters may be paying slightly more. But in any case, we are all taxpayers. And now I'm going to talk about equity and and something that runs through the course of this body and the town's culture. We have, in this country, historically, placed a huge emphasis on property. It used to be you couldn't even vote way back in history. You couldn't vote unless you owned property, because, of course, that always left a small number of certain people in control. And in many ways, this is manifested everywhere, and it's reached a point where, unchecked, it now feels like that disequity is coming close, is threatening to tear the whole country apart. And now I'm going to bring that home. In fact, half of this community does not own the dwelling that it lives in. Therefore, this tax money, in which every citizen has contributed to, is going to be redistributed to just the property owners. Now, theoretically, somebody who is renting a property would say, hey, I got $100 back in my taxes, or they were lowered. I'm paying $100 less. I will cut your rent. Right? I've never, in all my life, I have never seen that happen. So essentially, all the money that all the taxpayers pay goes back to one group, the homeowners. And that's not because this group feels that that's fair or unfair. It just never considers it because, and now I go back to the cultural thing, because we have placed such emphasis in being a legitimate member of a community by owning property, that sense translates into who comes forward to participate in this body, who feels they own a part of this town. And so we sit here in this large body, and my guess, I don't know what it is now, but maybe 70, 80% or 90% of this body are homeowners. So every time we talk about an issue of taxes, most of the people are thinking about their own pockets. They're not thinking about the other half that is not going to see a dime. So what I'm saying is this money, this surplus, would be far more equitably returned to the people of this town, the taxpayers of this town, if it was saved now and used for capital expenses as time goes on, for things that all of us benefit by and all of us enjoy and use.
Mr. Franks.
Tom Franks, District 3. I'm a little confused, and I'll just point out some things that I don't see as making sense. First of all, in our next item to discuss, we have a total capital budget of over $3.3 million. So it seems to me that a lot of the money we're going to be spending, no matter how you cut it, no matter how it's in the warning to allow it to be, not have to create a special fund or go to any extra length to use this money, we're covering our capital. That capital, as Mr. Agave pointed out, benefits all of us, regardless of our status as property owner. A couple of the assumptions I've been struggling with in Mr. Agave's presentation are that if we spend this reserve fund money now, we will borrow it and we will pay $350,000. I have no idea how we can prove that or assert that with any confidence. We have our body here and the town staff have worked very hard to prepare a long-term capital plan and to look at all of our resources, I think for the first time since I've been around here, and really look like they've done a tremendous job of figuring out what that is. So why would we think that we're going to borrow $1 million next year or any other year? I'm not seeing that at all. Final point, to Mr. Agave's, maybe I'll be honest, I'm a property owner. Maybe as a renter, if the taxes of, the person who's renting to me go down, I may not see a rental decrease that year. But you can be sure if property taxes go up the next year, you're going to see an increase. So anytime we save, it may not allocate directly, and my speculations is probably as good as Mr. Agave's on this one, since it's both a guess on personal behavior. So I don't think it's really appropriate to just assume many of the assumptions that seem to be implicit in Mr. Agave's 5 questions. Thank you very much.
Further debate on Article 19. Question is, shall the town appropriate $1,099,975 from the unassigned fund balance as of June 30th, 2016 as a partial funding for the town's operating and capital expenses for fiscal year 2018? Are you ready for that vote? If so, all those in favor, please rise. You may be seated. All those opposed, please rise. You may be seated. And Article 19 has been approved. Article 20. To see how much money the town will raise, appropriate, and expend to defray its expenses and liabilities. And the chair recognizes Mr. Gartenstein.
Thank you. I move that the Select Board be authorized to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum not to exceed $17,271,841 in order to defray to that extent all general fund expenses for the period July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2018, including all highway and Windham County taxes, and that the Select Board be authorized to expend in addition any sum authorized for special purpose under any article contained in the warning for this meeting or any special representative town meeting. This motion includes the following funding sources: $1,099,975 to be appropriated from the unassigned general fund balance, $14,267,946,000 to be collected in property taxes, and the balance to be comprised of all other sources of revenue collected by the town. This motion also provides that the town and town school district taxes assessed on the grand list as of April 1, 2017 shall be due and payable in 4 equal installments, payable to the town treasurer until overdue, then to the collector of taxes, that such payment of the installments shall be received by the town treasurer's office on or before 5 p.m. on August 15 and November 15, 2017, and February 15 and May 15, 2018, and that interest at a rate of 1% per month be charged from the due date of payment on any overdue payment of the town tax installment or portion thereof, and that a penalty of 8% be charged on any overdue payment that remains due and owing on May 15, 2018.
Is there a second? The motion has been made and seconded, and unless there's objection, I will only say, as just previously read by Mr. Gartenstein. Is there any discussion? Mr. Gartenstein.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So this $17,271,841 budget is a total increase of 7.3% over 2017. But as noted, the tax increase is 2.9%, 3.5 cents. It's about $406,000 in additional real estate taxes, which, as I said, is essentially equivalent to the increase in the funding we're paying on the debt for the police fire project this year. The budget is the result of many, many months of planning by the administration and deliberation in public session and consideration of these issues by the Select Board. In essence, we have 3 or 4, a series of categories in which these expenses are laid out. 39.7%, almost 40% of the $17 million and change is spent for wages of our almost 140 employees. 17.3, almost 17.5% is for benefits. So in total, personnel costs are 57% of the $17 million that is part of this budget. Another 30.5% is for capital expenses. So we have debt, and capital actually it's 12.6% department expenses and 17.9% capital and debt. Total is about 87.5% of the budget as a whole. The additional expenses are for legal, solid waste, human services, rescue, Windham Regional Commission, and various insurance. This budget at $17 and almost $500,000 is only part of the work that the town does as a whole In addition to this operating budget, we have a utilities budget that is approved as an enterprise fund by Select Board. That's a little bit more than $5.5 million. And similarly, there's the parking budget, which is about $700,000. So in total, the town operations cover about $24 million worth of activity, like I said, which is covered by about 140 employees. The primary shifts in the budget from last year to this year, as we've noted, have to do with increased investments in capital expenses. And those are purchasing, among other things, a new pumper rescue for the fire department, life safety and energy improvements at the municipal center, energy improvements at the Gibson-Aiken Center, engineering work for the Department of Public Works and the William Street intersection, paving on the streets and the parking lots, purchasing a new street sweeper to make sure that our storm drain system maintains its integrity, new dump truck, body cameras for the police, thermal imaging camera for the fire department, ballistic vests for the police, increased investment in sidewalks. In total, there's more than $3 million, $3.4 million total in investment in capital. And it's not just those items, but it's also the repayment that we're making on the police fire facilities. You've seen that the West Brattleboro Fire Station is now open. The metal structure is up at the Central Station, and we've started doing work inside the building at Black Mountain Road to house the police department. Our goal is to try to make sure that in the long term, our capital investment and our operating expenses are appropriately calibrated so that we're providing the services that are expected by people here in town. We've gone through many, many years of cuts in services over the last 10 or 15 years, and based upon Mr. Elwell's comprehensive review of town operations, I think it's fair to say that Select Board has concluded that we've cut about as much as we can, and that it's time to start making reinvestments and balancing our investments in operating and capital in a manner that's sustainable. And we think that this budget achieves those objectives.
Is there further debate? Mr. Bosworth.
Michael Bosworth, District 1. And I'd like to make a 3-sentence motion. I'd like to speak to it thereafter. I move to amend the proposed budget to appropriate a sum not to exceed $10,000 and to be offset by a $10,000 increase in property taxes, with the intent to fund the work of a successor organization to Brattleboro Climate Protection. Second sentence, spending any of the $10,000 would be dependent on the Select Board appointing a town energy coordinator by July 1st, 2017, and that $10,000 would go specifically to support her or his work. Spending any of the $10,000 would also depend on the Brattleboro Climate Protection successor organization entering into a fiscal agent agreement with a Vermont energy-focused federal 501c3 nonprofit organization by July 1st, 2017.
Is there a second to Mr. Bosworth's motion? Mr. Bosworth, if you could give me a copy, but if you would like to be heard first on your motion, you may.
Okay. And for those who don't know me, I'm also the chair of the Town Energy Committee. I realize a majority of the Select Board has already wrestled with this. A majority of the Select Board were against including $10,000 for this purpose in this new budget. But I thought it'd be healthy to bring this to the town meeting for a good debate on this. Back in November of 2016 at our monthly meeting being the Town Energy Committee's monthly meeting, the committee voted to recommend that the Select Board consider hiring a full-time energy coordinator, and aside, full-time being an actual town employee. People who knew Paul Cameron, most people probably knew that he wasn't actually a town employee, but so we recommend that the Select Board consider hiring a full-time energy coordinator, a town employee, based on the past and potential future savings generated by this effort. If that is not possible, we recommend a part-time paid coordinator. And if that is not possible, a qualified volunteer, if one can be found, and we recommend that $10,000 from the town budget go towards this effort. And that passed as a motion 7-0 at the Energy Committee meeting. And I just want to speak just briefly about arguments for why this is a good thing, would be a good thing in our opinion. A lot of the work that Paul did over the years has saved the town a fair amount of money, starting with the Honeywell project that started to save about $30,000 a year. And by fiscal year 23, when the loan is done, the Honeywell loan is done, that will jump up to $75,000 a year. Then Paul worked a lot on the lighting project, both the lights in the parking garage and the street lights. And that now saves the town about $125,000 a year. I realize Paul did not do this all himself. Obviously, he worked with a lot of, well, both Energy Committee members, but also town staff to get this done. But he was instrumental in both of those occurring. And before he left town, he was very instrumental part of the project to get the deep energy audits, extensive energy audits done on the municipal buildings. And those will give the town a roadmap and help to save a lot of money in the years to come. And he also worked quite hard on extracting data from the town energy bills so that now we have an excellent database for the last 3 years, and we'd like to consider that for year-to-year comparison, so we'd be able to have a good management tool and keep that going. We might, it seems like we'll be embarking very soon on an audit of the wastewater treatment facility. So there'll be definitely work for a new energy coordinator to do. I also realize that Peter Elwell, I think, will be looking at the possibility or the pluses and minuses of an actual energy coordinator on staff, whether that makes sense this coming spring and summer. So certainly applaud that effort and hope, that turned, well, I think it's beneficial just to take a look at it. But even if his recommendation would then be to hire somebody, that would likely not to take place till fiscal year 19. So we'd have this whole year without the kind of services we got from Energy Coordinator. So I think that's about what I have to say. So I do have a written copy of this.
Yes, please. If you could bring me a copy before we entertain any debate. The motion is to amend the proposed budget to appropriate a sum not to exceed $10,000 to be offset by a $10,000 increase in property taxes, with the intent to fund the work of a successor organization to the Brattleboro Climate Protection. Spending any of the $10,000 would be dependent on the Select Board appointing a town energy coordinator by July 1st, 2017, and that the $10,000 would go specifically to support her or his work. Spending any of the $10,000 would also depend on the Brattleboro Climate Protection Successor Organization entering into a fiscal agent agreement with the Vermont Energy Focused Federal 501c3 nonprofit organization by July 1, 2017. Did I get that right, Mr. Bosworth?
Yes.
Okay. Is there debate with regard to Mr. Boswell's motion?
Point of order. Mr. Moderator?
Yes. Mr. DeGray.
Because we're discussing the budget, I would just let you know that you'd be amending the budget to $17,281,841. Right now, the budget that was presented by the article question is $17,271,841. So that's the $10,000 increase.
Thank you, Mr. DeGray, for clarifying that. Well, it's $10,000 on top of the amount requested in the motion. But let's deal with just the motion to amend first. Mr. Gartenstein.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The board spent quite a bit of time looking into what sort of investments we should make with respect to energy efficiency in this year's budget. There are, in fact, many commitments that we're currently pursuing to savings with respect to energy efficiency. The police fire facilities that are currently under construction were designed with modern energy efficiency standards in mind. There are energy efficiency projects contemplated at this time at the Municipal Center and at the Gibson-Aiken Center involving the replacement of the windows there. We are in the process of early stages of planning for letting out engineering work for an upgrade at the water treatment plant up the Pleasant Valley. And those plans will take into account energy savings measures at that location as well. In addition, the money that's in the budget for upgrades at the Public Works facility also will be addressing energy efficiency related matters. The question arises whether $10,000 is really a sufficient amount of money that will make a difference in doing this work. And I think it was the consensus of the board that the $10,000 was not necessarily without a plan in place, money that was going to make a real difference in our pursuit of energy efficiency related matters. And so we have asked the town manager to take a broad look at the way in which energy efficiency savings and efforts can be integrated into the town's activities as a whole, and to return to us, to the next board, with a proposal for how best to achieve that. That may include, or that may involve, hiring a full-time employee, but there was no clear plan for how that work would happen in the immediate future, and just throwing $10,000 at it didn't seem to be an effective way to proceed. So our decision, at least at this point, was not to include that $10,000 in the budget.
Further debate on the Bosworth amendment. Yes, in the back.
Abigail Manukin, District 2. I am a parent of 2 young children, and there is no shortage of things to worry about, but climate change is at the very top of my list. I was extremely disappointed by the recent Select Board decisions that ignored so many of the Energy Committee's recommendations for energy efficiency measures. And while I appreciate what you just said in terms of what the board did decide to do, there were a huge number of recommendations, like the introducing wood heat into 2 of the facilities, that were overlooked for short-term monetary reasons as opposed to looking ahead. Climate change is not something that's happening in the future. Climate change is here, it's happening now, and it's affecting all of us. And by saying that throwing $10,000 isn't going to be the answer, I think all of us would agree. But throwing $0 at it is also not the answer. So I fully support this proposal. I think $10,000 is the least we can do. And thinking sort of like, if you build it, they will come, I don't think waiting until you're ready to fund a full-time position is the way to go either. So there was $10,000 in the budget when Paul Cameron was here. I really support keeping that in now and finding somebody who will commit themselves and the town to addressing climate change in a real and meaningful way. Thank you.
The question is on Mr. Bosworth's motion to amend, back all the way to the back. Yes, sir.
Elwin Hamilton.
Yes.
California order. I haven't heard a second for that motion.
Would you please come to the microphone, Mr. Hamilton?
Yeah, Elwin Hamilton, District 1. I'm calling point of order. I didn't hear a second to the motion.
Well, if that's the case, then let's ask, is there a second? Okay, thank you. Thank you for bringing that to the chair's attention, Mr. Hamilton. Any other questions? I'd like to get some people who maybe, Ms. Kornheiser?
Emily Kornheiser. I have a memory in past years of being told that Mr. Costello's $10,000 more than paid for itself with the grants that were obtained. Am I remembering incorrectly, or has something changed? Cameron, sorry. Cameron.
Ms. Kornheiser has a question that appears to be to interrogate the administration. Can anybody answer that question?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and Mr. Moreland for whispering part of the answer in my ear, because I said to Patrick, I said, I'm not personally aware of grants, but I have heard repeatedly there's a general consensus among people who pay attention to these issues that the work that Paul did created value for the town, payback in terms of savings that exceeded $10,000 a year. And what Patrick has advised me is that from time to time there also were grants. So.
Further debate on the Bosworth Amendment. Ms. McLaughlin.
Elizabeth McLaughlin, District 3. I think Brattleboro was exceedingly fortunate to have Paul Cameron work, but mostly donate his services for $10,000. And I think it's unrealistic for Brattleboro to think that we could continue on that basis. And I think it's only prudent for the town to support investigating a full-time job and finding someone to do that work, because I really don't think that anyone could be found to do that work for $10,000 a year.
Further consideration of Mr. Bosworth's motion to amend. Mr. Harvey.
George Harvey, District 3. I write for Green Energy Times, and I write for other publications, and do a lot of work relating to energy. And I just want to bring it to the attention of the board and to the people of the town meeting that I think that it is not a good idea for the Select Board to try to get an answer on what we should be doing in this regard by having someone who is to try to find out what we should do and then make a recommendation, unless that person is well-versed in issues relating to energy. And I'd like to give you an example of what I mean. I interviewed an architect a couple of years ago who told me that he had an apartment building he had designed in Brooklyn that was heated by electric resistance floor mats in the bathrooms. That was the only heat source for the building. And the reason he could do this was because the building was very well air sealed and had excellent ventilation and was very well insulated. But he told me something, which was that you can get 90% of the way to passive construction, which means that you're in effect reducing the costs for energy by 90% in a building which cost no more than conventional construction. And I thought, well, that's very peculiar. I hadn't thought about that before. And this was something that I'd been writing about for years. So as I consulted more and more architects and builders, I asked them, is it possible to get 90% of the way to passive construction for the same price as conventional? And one of them said to me that he had a job that this was an architect, he had a customer who asked him for design, and he said, I can do this either the green way or the conventional way. And the fellow said, I don't want to do it the green way. I don't want to pay any extra for anything fancy. And the guy said, well, you can do it the conventional way, but it's going to cost you $3,500 extra. And that's in addition to the fact that you're going to see your heating bill be 10 times as high. So I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't known such a thing was possible. I think if we're going to have somebody look at the idea of trying to figure out who could replace Paul Cameron, we should at least be certain that we get somebody who knows a great deal about the subject doing that search. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Further questions or comments? Yes.
I'm new to this. Dr. Jessica Dolan, District 3. I just want to contribute that I think there's no shortage of people. Growing up here in Brattleboro, I know there's no shortage of people who are dedicated to studying environment and energy. And having worked in an environment for some time myself, I know that it's one of the most chronically underfunded fields. And that it is an area, basically everything we do depends on the environment. We don't have economy without environment. So it is an area that we need people dedicated to thinking explicitly about. And as well, buying energy or creating energy efficient buildings is not sufficient to addressing climate change fully. We have to look at the bigger picture in terms of how we operate within the larger ecology and environment. So I'm new to this, but I think that the proposal that the gentleman here has put forward is a really good idea. It behooves all of us now, for our children, our grandchildren, to consider in planning dedicating having a person dedicate their mind to environment in Brattleboro.
The question is on Mr. Bosworth's motion to amend. Is there further debate? Mr. Chapman's had his hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chris Chapman, District 1. I want to express my support for this motion. Energy independence probably is the most strategically important thing we can do as a matter of budgeting. Spending that money now will probably mean spending a lot less later. I note that around the world, the world of energy is changing. We have a report out of Davos for the great economic forum that was held earlier this year that Saudi Arabia, of all countries, the nation in the world with the biggest oil known oil reserves in the world is moving to invest in solar energy because the price of energy is so volatile. It can no longer really depend on plans for certain prices for its product. What does that have to do with Brattleboro? It has to do with the fact that energy prices are so volatile that they can gum up our budgets. And I think that a consistent presence that the town would have in this field of energy, understanding the changes to technology that are taking place, which is happening at a very rapid pace, similar to the pace at which computer chips are changing and improving and becoming ever more efficient and economical. We owe it to ourselves to stay on this wave, not behind it, for our own good in the long term. We budget for capital as a strategic matter because it is so important to look 10 years out on our needs for capital, to spend money over time in order to save money later. It just follows here. $10,000, I understand that you cannot just have everything that you want in a budget. I know that very well from home, from being a public figure here in Brattleboro. This is a hard one because it's $10,000 more, but I believe that it's the wise thing to do in our own interest. I would further go and say that as good citizens in our country, that energy independence is a matter of national security importance. And so I thank you for your listening.
Further debate. Mr. Fallion.
Peter Fallion, District 3. I fully support this. I fully support the idea of keeping energy in a very central place in our focus on government. I've heard arguments against this idea of having a paid energy coordinator, working with the Energy Committee, because other committees of the town that do very good work do not have such a person. Well, the energy is so different. It's a false equivalency to say that, you know, the Energy Committee is the same as another committee. Energy is central. It determines everything we do. If you look at energy in terms of how it impacts the budget all over the place. And I really fully support the previous speaker who said that energy is more than just efficiency. My goodness. We have a huge problem in this state around emissions because 40% of our energy goes to cars, and we drive a lot in Vermont because of the kind of state we live in. One of the things that Michael didn't point out is that Paul worked on a huge commuter plan as part of a statewide effort to get people to carpool. I worked with him on that committee. And so that's an example of where, because of somebody waking up in the morning and thinking about energy, this town has really been able to make a lot of progress. In years past, we funded Paul through the Human Services Committee. We funded global climate change. And that's how this $10,000, as I understand it, $10,000 has never been in the town budget. It's been in the Human Service funding budget. So I hope we'll support, if not the exact idea that Michael's brought up, a commitment to keeping energy at the central focus, as it should be. Thank you.
Further discussion on Mr. Bosworth's motion to amend. Mr. Ozer.
Robert Ozer, District 3. So we could spend a lot of time probably talking about chicken and egg, whether the $10,000 is really going to do the trick or not. whether we were really lucky to have Paul, can we get that lucky again to get someone who will be able to fill that role? But I think the $10,000 is really a bookmark, that energy is important. At least put that bookmark in place, and then maybe we can get a plan out of that. There are some caveats in the motion about how that $10,000 gets expended, and some discretion on the select board how that gets done. But I think the main point is that you got somebody whose eye is on energy, whatever the project is, whether it's new construction, whether it's renovations, whether it's commuting, whether it's the bus service, whatever it is. Thank you.
The Chair will read the motion one more time. Mr. Bosworth's motion to amend the proposed budget to appropriate a sum not to exceed $10,000 to be offset by a $10,000 increase in property taxes, with the intent to fund the work of a successor organization to Brattleboro Climate Protection. Spending any of the $10,000 would be dependent on the Select Board appointing a Town Energy Coordinator by July 1, 2017, and that $10,000 would go specifically to support her or his work. Spending any of the $10,000 would also be dependent on the Brattleboro Climate Protection Successor Organization entering into a fiscal agent agreement with a Vermont energy-focused federal 501c3 nonprofit organization by July 1st, 2017. Is there further debate? Ms. Burke.
Molly Burke, District 2. I fully support this motion. If my memory serves me correctly, I don't remember, initially there was asked from town meeting, I think a sum of maybe it was $2,000 initially to support the work of Brattleboro Climate Protection. That may have been 8 years ago or something. Then then I think the amount came to $5,000. And actually, it was not through the Human Services. It was a separate article, is my recollection, I believe. Then it came to $10,000, and in the past few years that article has been presented, there was, I think, no debate on it at all. I think it was, everybody sort of agreed that this was money well spent. I agree with what Mr. Ogier said about a bookmark. I totally believe that we as a town, the size of our town, need to have a full-time energy coordinator, and I applaud the Select Board for thinking that way and for all your efforts, but I think in the meantime, it sends a message. There may be somebody out there who's already doing a lot of this work and would be able to spend some of their time with the extra 10,000, keeping this work going. And I also just want to take this moment to thank Paul Cameron for all the work that he did for our town and for his unbelievable dedication.
Further debate. I'm going to let the administration be heard again to mix it up. But I'm going to go to Mr. Scholes first.
I wanted to clarify a couple of things about the position and the work that's involved, because the Energy Committee, the members of the Energy Committee are really experts in the energy field. They have provided, I can't even describe the detail and the specificity of the data that they provided to help the Select Board and the administration figure out which projects to go forward with, where the savings are, what the values will be, just a whole range of information that we wouldn't get otherwise, and that's from the members. The role of the coordinator is really to coordinate that and support the work, and Paul did incidentally involve himself in a lot of other things, including grant writing, which hopefully would continue. But I think the important point is that the work is to guide the efforts of the town so we can figure out what the best investments are. And it's the work of the whole committee. And $10,000 and a part-time person was clearly adequate in the past, and I think we can find someone to do that in the future. We tried over the last few weeks to find someone to volunteer to be energy coordinator, and we have had no applicants. So I support this. I hope that the body will support it so that we don't have a year where we're not making the kind of progress on energy issues that we have been making over the past 7 or 8 years when we've had Paul in place.
Further discussion? Ms. Sternis.
Back again with alternative reality. One of the things that was discussed here that what Paul did was to get us grants. Considering what the political climate is right now as far as the federal government is concerned, if you want to call it a climate, we're going to need somebody who's going to be able to dedicate themselves to looking for more grant money. It's not going to be that easy to find. And I really think that it's very important that we have someone to dedicate it the way Paul did and find us money to help us with our energy savings.
Ms. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Valerie Stewart, State Rep, District 1. Mr. Moderator, Select Board members, I so respect all the hard work you do every day on behalf of our town. I really do. I say that with all my heart. I also say with all my heart that, like Barack Obama said, whether you liked him or not, I think he was right on target when he said, global climate change is the issue of our time. Whoever said just now that it is a global security issue is dead on. And I know a little bit about that because I have a daughter who is a second lieutenant in the United States Army. She lives in Germany. She is on the Patriot missile. This is a problem. We need to solve it. Mr. Moderator, if you'll indulge me for one more moment, I also have some ideas. That's really what I'm here to offer. I want to offer ideas that will help us break this impasse. I so respect all of you, and I so respect the people from 350.org and Mother Up and Michael Bosworth and George Harvey and Tad Montgomery and Molly Burke. And Molly and I go every week to the Global Solutions Caucus in Montpelier. The room fills up every time. We've been doing it for how many years, Molly? I don't know, 5, 6. The caucus has gotten more and more busy. It's standing room only now. Every week we have someone great talk to us about solutions. So here's the thing. Molly and I also go to a conference, and another Paul, another really fabulous Paul, whose name most of you would recognize, is Paul Costello, and he's from the Council on Rural Development. And as many of you may know, Paul convenes groups on visioning in Vermont and all sorts of wonderful things that have brought this state forward. Paul is now, with his Herculean efforts that are underfunded and possibly underappreciated by some because it takes a while for the world to catch on sometimes. He has had a global climate change summit at the Vermont Technology College in Randolph for the past 2 years. It's been great. And Ted Brady and many, many names from state government and many people in this room have attended that very, very popular conference 2 years going. This year, my idea, I said to Paul, he loved the idea. It happened to have been a good idea. I have some experience in PR, marketing, fundraising, and that sort of thing. I said, Paul, why don't we do a national conference? Why don't we bring people from all over the United States here? We are the lead creator of renewable energy jobs, so why don't we just get everybody here, get in the news, and take some credit for all of what we're doing. So we're going to do that. So Paul needs help fundraising. I think you guys need help fundraising. Maybe we can raise the money right here sometime soon, like in the next year or two. We could do a match. I mean, I'd be willing to put $100 down right now for the planet, for Mother Earth. And I would be glad for to take a little bit of time of this body to consider that idea if you already haven't, and I would greatly appreciate your indulgence on that. I'm not trying to interfere with your great process and all of your really combing through the numbers. I'm just saying maybe we could explore fundraising and coming up with $10,000. Thank you.
Further discussion on Mr. Bosworth's motion to amend. Mr. Siegel, you've had your... Yeah, I'm sorry. All the way in the back here, yes. Yes. Ms. Zach.
Hi, Deb Zach, District 2. I really admire the work that Paul Cameron has done over the years and was really sad to see him leave the area, but happy for him. I think he's done a lot of good work for the town. Where I get confused on this issue is we're talking about energy savings and we're talking about climate protection. And to me, those two things, while they may be linked in some ways, they're two separate things. And so I feel like we really need to take some time to figure out what it is that the town actually needs and what we want to focus on. Is it energy savings and costs, or is it really the broader resiliency and emergency planning and that kind of thing? So that's all I wanted to say, and just food for thought. Thanks.
Mr. Siegel.
Hi, I'm Siegel, District 1. I wanted to first just offer my support to the motion. I think it's, to me, almost a no-brainer. I think just about every year I've been here, there's been nothing but kudos to Paul Cameron. Everybody appreciated his work. There's never been any argument about funding him, and finding somebody to do similar work for us is for a relatively small amount of money, $10,000, seems to me a no-brainer. The question, I do have an interrogation of somebody in the town. The conditions in the motion, are they easily meetable? I'm a little confused as to the process that's described in the motion and whether, in fact, we could get somebody in before July 1st through whatever it is.
A member of the administration is interrogated.
Thank you. I would actually ask Michael Bosworth whether what had motivated him to be that specific. I think it's a reasonable concern that even the front end, retaining of such a person and making sure that it's the right person. There will be people. There's a lot of people in this room who have thoughts about that, and we heard from Mr. Harvey quite rightly that this needs to be an educated decision for who's going to fulfill such a role for the town. So I think there's a reasonable concern that July 1st, is possible but not automatic, that we're going to be able to fill that position. And then there's the question of actually getting the affiliation all straightened out. So if you had a purpose to it, Michael, then we should know what that is. And if it isn't important to you, perhaps the motion could be modified to say everything else it's saying, but not have that deadline attached to it.
I'm fine with not having. Yes, I'm fine with not having the deadline attached to it. I thought, people might just have a little bit more feeling of ease with a motion that has some specificity to it. But if that makes it harder, then we could take that deadline away. As far as the second part, affiliation with a 501c3, we've already floated the idea with two organizations, one that Brattleboro Climate Protection used to be with the fiscal agency for Brattleboro Climate Protection, operate out of middle of Vermont. But the other one is a local Sustainable Energy Outreach Network, which is a federal 501c3. The director there said they'd be very open to considering it. He couldn't promise it because it's really a board vote, but so we floated that already. So I think it's very likely one or the other would take that on.
Mr. Bosworth, before you go anywhere, in response to Mr. Elwell, are you now suggesting that you remove from your motion July 1, 17 as the date by which a coordinator would be hired?
Sure, I'm fine with that modification to my motion.
Unless there is objection, the chair will modify the motion accordingly based upon the change requested by Mr. Bosworth. Is there further discussion? Where? Way back. Yes.
Hi, Dennis Newman, District 3. I'm all for fighting climate change and saving energy, but it seems to me like there's too little focus to this and too little direction, and I feel like we're throwing money at the problem. $10,000 isn't much. Maybe it'll accomplish something, but I have reservations about it, and I also feel like supporting the select board's decision, so I'm going to vote against this.
Further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Kathleen White, District 3. I'm on the Energy Committee as well. I support the motion in general. I just have a question about the making it contingent with being part of a 501c3, and does that make it more complicated? And maybe Michael can speak to that.
Mr. Bosworth is interrogated.
Yeah. I don't think it makes it greatly complicated, and Brattleboro Climate Protection itself had already had such a relationship and was able to operate like that for a number of years. And a number of other organizations like that do have a fiscal agent relationship to a 501c3, so not just energy organizations. So it's a kind of a common relationship. And you often can't get grants unless you are a 501c3, so grants are often funneled through a parent organization or take charitable contributions, for example.
Further debate on the Bosworth motion to amend? Yes, please, ma'am. Ms. Casey.
Mary Casey, District 1. If there is an opinion or perhaps an interrogation of the town attorney, is there any magic to the term successor organization and limiting it to a type of organization when there perhaps is an organization at the time of the motion that is already being considered? For one, your idea about successor organization to another organization.
Does the town attorney understand Ms. Casey's?
I'm not sure I understand the question, because the prerequisites as put forth by Mr. Bosworth are part of his motion. So as far as a successor organization, the town, I'm sure, can work with that with a 501c3 organization if the motion passes.
A successor organization does not have to have a relationship legally to an organization that has gone before if that isn't the intent. If I have a successor organization, usually it's because somebody bought somebody out.
Right. Perhaps Mr. Bosworth ought to speak to this.
The reason I put that in, when Paul left town for North Carolina to be with his family, he closed down Brattleboro Climate Protection. So I just used that terminology there. We'd have to get another organization, likely a Vermont nonprofit, which is not a federal nonprofit, but it's a little easier to get something like that. Yeah. Right.
Is it Mr. Phillips back there? I thought you were up here.
Thank you. Steve Phillips, District 3. Will someone correct me if my understanding is wrong, but I understand that we're just voting on $10,000.
That is correct.
And we're not voting on the conditions, which are...
Yes, we are.
Which are advisory only. Can we condition those? Can we condition you to buy a fire truck? I don't think we can. So if I'm wrong about that, please let me know.
Well, go ahead, Mr. Elba.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So the action of the body, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, particularly given the extent of discussion today and the clarity of the extent of the desire of the body, at least a lot of members, we'll find out here in a minute when you vote, to have this happen, gives quite clear advice to the select board. But under Vermont law, what you're doing is adding $10,000 to the budget, $10,000 to the tax levy in order to provide that money, and your advice to the select board that you want them to do this, use it for this purpose. But the town meeting can't bind the select board to use the $10,000 for this purpose.
So in light of that, I'm going to support the motion. Best case scenario, you find a good way to put it to use, more or less consistent with our discussion. Worst case, you've got 10,000 more in the unassigned fund balance at the end of the year.
So once again, the Bosworth motion to amend reads as follows. Shall we amend the proposed budget to appropriate the sum not to exceed $10,000 to be offset by a $10,000 increase in property taxes with the intent to fund the work of a successor organization to Brattleboro Climate Protection? Spending any of the $10,000 would be dependent on the select board appointing a town energy coordinator, and that $10,000 would go specifically to support his or her work. Spending any of the $10,000 would also depend on the Brattleboro Climate Protection successor organization entering into a fiscal agent agreement with a Vermont energy-focused federal 501c3 nonprofit organization by July 1st, 2017. Are you ready for that question? What did I say, 13?
The date has been taken.
Oh, the date. I took the date out up above, but I did not understand that that date was to come out. Is that correct, Mr. Bosworth? The last date, do you want also to come out?
Well, given the last clarification, I don't think it makes a lot of difference, but yes,
right.
I'm fine with it coming out.
Okay, all right. So we remove the date, and it would end federal 501c3 nonprofit organization, period. Are you ready for that question? Yes.
The longest $10,000 discussion in history, but I'm still, given this last point of the discussion, now we're going to vote on $10,000 with all of this stuff after the $10,000, but none of that really makes any difference. Is that right?
It does.
So just to understand, we're leaving it in the motion as an advisory idea.
That's correct.
But it doesn't really count. Okay.
It's advisory. Are we ready for the question? If so, all those in favor of the Bosworth amendment, please rise. You may be seated. Those opposed, please rise. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And you've amended Article 20. Article 20, let's see, it's been 2 hours. I'm sorry? Yes, yes, me too. Okay. Article 20, shall the Select Board be authorized to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum which is now $17,281,841,000, in order to defray to the extent all general fund expenses for the period of July 1, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, including all highway and Windham County taxes, and that the Select Board be authorized to extend, in addition, any sums authorized for special purposes under any article contained in the warning for this meeting or any special representative town meeting. This motion includes the following funding sources: $1,099,975 to be appropriated from the unassigned general fund balance, $14,277,000, would that be right? $277,946 to be collected in property taxes, and the balance to be comprised of all other sources of revenue collected by the town. This motion shall also provides that the town and town school taxes assessed on the grand list as April 1, 2017, shall be due and payable in 4 equal installments payable to the town treasurer until overdue, then to the collector of taxes. That such payment of installments shall be received by the town treasurer's office on or before 5 p.m. on August 15th, 2017, November 15th, 2017, February 15th, 2018, and May 15th, 2018, and that interest at a rate of 1% per month be charged from the due date of payment on any overdue payment of the town tax, installment or portion thereof, and that a penalty of 8% be charged on any overdue payment that remains due and owing on May 15th, 2018. Are you ready for that question? Yes, Mr. Schiff, please.
Leo Schiff, District 3. I want to speak in favor of the budget and appreciation of the work of the people on the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and the Town Manager. I'm especially pleased about the $15,000 allocation for body cameras for the Police Department, and hope that that will increase trust between civilians and the Police Department. I believe that government should be a model employer, and as such, I have a question for the town manager. I'm wondering, of the roughly 140 positions that we have for permanent town employees, how many of those positions have starting pay that is below $15 an hour, and in which departments are they concentrated?
A member of the board, Mr. Elwell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm sorry that I can't tell you off the top of my head an exact number of employees, but our starting pay for some of our positions is below $15 an hour. In every case, the positions that would be on that list are part of union contracts. Those salary levels are set by those collectively bargained contracts. But that's something that we've had some communication about related to those positions actually in the most recent round of bargaining, and it's something I could provide a more explicit response to you about at another time when I have the information in front of me. But it's a condition that does exist to a pretty limited extent in our town staff.
Further debate on the main motion. If not, all those in favor of approving the budget, Article 20, as I have just read, please rise. You may be seated. All those opposed, please rise. And you've approved Article 20. And we've been going now for 2 hours, so we'll take a brief 15-minute recess. We now take up Article 21 to see if the town will authorize the expenditure of $24,000 from program income, a revolving loan fund that dispenses proceeds which originated as community development block grants, as a contribution to the operation of Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, SeVEDS. And for this motion, the chair will recognize Mr. DeGray.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is my last article here. And several of you noticed that I did have an apparel change after lunch. My fashion consultant told me at lunchtime break that my jacket looked white on TV. And we all know that you can't wear white before Memorial Day, so I had to put on a different coat. So, having said that, I move that the town authorize the Select Board to expend $24,000 from program income, a revolving loan fund that dispenses proceeds which originated as community development block grants, as a contribution to the operations of Southern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, in quotation, SeVEDS.
Is there a second? It has been moved and seconded that the town authorize the Select Board to expend $24,000 from program income, a revolving loan fund that dispenses proceeds which originated as community development block grants, as a contribution to the operation of Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, SeVEDS. Do you wish to be heard on this motion, Mr. DeGray?
Not at this point.
Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on Article 21? Mr. Grenold, do you wish to be heard on this motion?
I do. Thank you.
Mr. Grenold is regrettably not a resident of the town of Brattleboro, but unless there is objection, the chair will allow him to go forward as the executive director. Mr. Grenold.
Great. Mr. Moderator, thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. I'd also like to thank the body of the representatives, Town Manager Peter Elwell, the Select Board, and previous Select Boards for your previous support of SeVEDS-led initiatives. I'll begin with a little background. SeVEDS has no employees. It contracts with the BDCC to implement its mission, and the BDCC then takes this mission and turns it into programs to drive the economy. In 2013, SeVEDS conducted the region's first comprehensive economic development strategy, also known as the SeVEDS. This SeVEDS looked at the region's assets and understood ways in which to help grow the economy. By focusing the region's resources on this, we've been very effective at helping to do that. The SeVEDS process allows us to understand our region's assets and strengths and provide strategies to ensure future growth. Here in southern Vermont, our rural economy, it's very difficult to get assets from outside the region into our area. And when we do, we have to make sure we focus those with laser-like precision. Next week, 2 years ago, next week, GS Precision held a zoning hearing in Cheshire County for expansion of their plant in New Hampshire. With the rapid response of the BDCC SeVEDS team and close partnership with the town of Brattleboro, the state of Vermont, we were able to retain that project right here in Brattleboro. That project will wrap up this May with a retention of over 300 jobs, expansion of up to 100 high-paying jobs, all with benefits right here in Brattleboro. The SeVEDS document created 1 year prior had identified the precision manufacturing expansion as an opportunity to grow the economy. Since creating our SeVEDS in the BDCC-led initiatives have brought in over $15 million of federal, state, and regional dollars to projects, which have seen over $55 million of private investment right here in Windham County. Those have led to the creation and retention of over 700 jobs, all with benefits, all with higher than median wage earnings, again, right here in Windham County. So that's the input. What's coming out? Is anyone better off because of that? The latest available estimates show that the GDP, that's gross domestic product, of Windham County grew 5.3% year over year. With our neighbors to the east in New Hampshire, they grew 2.5%. Bennington to our west, 3.1%. Windham County exports also outpaced our neighbors on all sides with a 5.6% growth, and the next highest being 3.8%. You can see the impact of this growth on the rise in the median wages in Windham County, growing by 12% between 2011 and 2015, with a comparison to Bennington County, with a growth of less than 7%. So this data, and much more data, makes it very clear that the implementation of our SeVEDS is helping our economy grow. And this impact was received international attention with an award given to our implementation of the SeVEDS by the International Economic Development Council, who awarded us with a silver medal for the SeVEDS implementation in 2016. So with me today are Alex Beck, our workforce and education specialist. We have R.T. Brown, our head instigator, also the small business startup and support systems, and the Windham County Economic Development Program coordinator, and Kristen Mihalik with the BDCC and the 6 colleges internship program coordinator. We're happy to speak in more detail about our programs, the lives that they impact, and the value of the investment you're considering here today. So thank you.
Is there further discussion with regard to Article 21? Mr. Akabi.
I assume, of course, that all those things are really true and they've helped us. I guess it shows that obviously we can afford a 6 or 7 cent tax rate. When you start adding up those economic increases, those percents every year, and the increased employment and et cetera, we're doing quite well. I feel, though, 2 things, that SeVEDS is a part of BDCC. They own $9 million worth of property in Brattleboro, most of which they get rent on. And insofar as I know, there isn't any reason they can't fund SeVEDS to whatever degree they needed SeVEDS. Why they come here, I mean, every organization needs more money. The hospital needs more money. Everybody needs more money, or wants more money. But as far as I know, BDCC might have tons of it. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's ever looked. We always want to look. Our human services committee looks at financial statements to see who needs what. And I wondered whether the town ever looked at how much BDCC really needed. But that aside, this economic information is important, even if all it does is enable us to question our own assumptions, which we make all the time. I mean, people, I hear one person after another always making assumptions or statements as if they know what we can afford, what we can't, how well we're doing, how well we're not doing, and how people are suffering or not suffering. And so economic and information is really vital. So I would like to recommend that in the future, when they come to the town for money, that they should also come with a complete, updated economic report that we can print in our town report, that we can refer to, and begin to have the kind of information that we need to make the decisions that we need.
Further discussion? Mr. Carville.
The last speaker confused me. As I read this, this is not a request for taxpayer money. It's just to expend money. It's a revolving thing that's coming in, right? You're not asking for tax money.
Further questions or debate? Mr. Ozer?
I guess it's probably all tax money, right? The program income fund, the way I understand it, is money that's repaid to the town from CDBG loan money, which originated from federal sources and came to the town. CDBG is one of those areas which is targeted in the federal budget as to be severely reduced in the upcoming budget term. So maybe we want a CDBG reserve fund is one question. It's the way the article is phrased, it's as a contribution to the program. And so I wonder if there's a way to know whether our contribution, should we make it, has a direct impact and what that impact is and how one would balance that impact off of keeping that money within the town and using it to maybe target economic development initiatives within the town.
That is that a question that you have of the administration, Mr. Ozer?
I don't know who would answer.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. You've characterized the funds properly. There is about $400,000 or so. We can get a very precise figure for you if you need a very precise figure, but that's close to what is currently in the fund and not tentatively allocated to any projects or other loans. So there's a judgment call there for the body to make. Again, similar to my comment earlier about the other aspect of the town's budget, the decision related to this was made prior to the release of the proposed federal budget, and if you deem that to be a significant enough concern to affect your decision on this dollar amount, I think that's a fair weighing of priorities.
Ms. Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. As a member of the Commerce Committee and the Economic Development Committee, this is my second term on the Commerce Committee. I served for 2 terms on the Education Committee. We serve 2-year terms, as I imagine most of you in this room are aware. I would like to wholeheartedly support the increase for SeVEDS. But for SeVEDS, our area would be in even worse trouble than it already is. SeVEDS is a poster child for the state of Vermont that regularly comes into the Commerce Committee, and we don't indulge testimony lightly, let's put it that way. We invite people in only if we think we can learn something from them. SeVEDS is doing, I think you heard Mr. Grinold say, some of the things they're doing. They're winning prizes, national prizes, okay? We are one of the grayest counties in the state. We are one of the lowest per capita income for families, et cetera, in the state. We are having a real lot of trouble filling the jobs we have. I was at something at New Chapter last night, And basically, what it's about, New Chapter desperately needs to recruit people with skills to this area. SeVEDS is doing a great job. Alex Beck, Adam Grinold. I can't say enough good things about these people. All of the RDCs in the state, by the way, for those who don't know, I didn't know before I was on the Commerce Committee, they all get money from their localities. They also get a small amount of money from the state. But we need these desperately. The state of Vermont only invests, and if you look at other states, it's a problem. We need to move into the future. The state of Vermont only invests, I think it's like 1% of our GDP in economic development. We have to scratch the dirt at the state level with dirt with, it's got nails and, I mean, we're trying so desperately to put together a little bit of money as a state to bring young people here, to keep young people here, to keep a lot of the young families that are in this room that want to be here, to try to make sure that they have jobs. But for SeVEDS, but for this great organization that's a poster child in this state, we would have lost 100 jobs a couple of years ago. GS Precision. We would have lost, we would not have gained Commonwealth Dairy. I don't think I need to tell the Select Board some of the great things that SeVEDS is doing, and maybe some of you in this room know this, but I didn't know this until I was on the Commerce Committee, and I, have heard, and Laura Sibilia, who also is a rock star in this area, she was on the Commerce Committee last session. Now she's on the Technology and Energy Committee. Thank goodness. Maybe someday we'll have broadband and we'll figure out how to finance it. Dollars are short in this state. Time is short, but people who work hard aren't short. People who have community spirit aren't short. Please, I really urge the body to not, worry about this money. I would invite the moderator to consider having Mr. Grinold talk about a few of the specifics of dollar for dollar, what we put in and we get out. Thank you.
Further discussion with regard to the SeVEDS proposal, Article 21. Mr. DeGray.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Part of the last question was, would the town do better in terms of using that money to fund projects directly? We do. We have given money to the Brooks House. We have given money to GSP, which Mr. Grinold has just talked about. And we have also funded Commonwealth Yogurt in terms of grant funding directly versus going through SeVEDS. One of the things that SeVEDS, and maybe Mr. Grinold will give us the answer. This has been a article question in several communities in Windham County, and I don't know in how many towns that the funding request passed, and in how many towns the funding request failed. And I don't have that answer, and would be interested in hearing what the ratio was in terms of success passage by those communities versus those that didn't support it.
Mr. Grinold is interrogated, should he wish to be. Mr. Grinold, can you answer a couple of these questions that have been raised by representatives?
Yes, thank you. Backing up a bit, this is very much a regional approach. It's been designed that way. We go to many municipalities across Windham County. Brattleboro was the initial sponsor of SeVEDS many years ago, and at that time said, go out and get matching dollars and come back and talk to us then. And that was probably the best gift that SeVEDS ever received, in that it forced us to go out into the communities, talk about the programs, talk about the challenges, talk about the opportunities. So we're very thankful for that push that got us out into all the various communities. We do have limited ability through the staff and the boards to petition all those communities. So each year we're trying to add 1 or 2 new communities that we petition and have articles on. So over all of the years when we've been in front of communities, we have had articles turned down 3 times. Once in Vernon last year, once in Vernon this year. We had Londonderry last year, failed, and this year Westminster failed.
Is there further debate on Article 21? The question is, shall the town authorize the Select Board to expend $24,000 from program income, a revolving loan fund that disperses proceeds which originated as community development block grants, as a contribution to the operation of Southeastern Vermont Economic Development Strategies, SeVEDS? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please rise. You may be seated. All those opposed, please rise. And you have adopted Article 21. Article 22. Shall the town of Brattleboro vote to advise the Select Board to proclaim the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day in place of Columbus Day? Chair recognizes Mr. Scholes.
I move that the town advise the Select Board to proclaim the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day in place of Columbus Day.
Is there a second? Second. It has been moved and seconded that the town advise the Select Board to proclaim the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day in place of Columbus Day. Is there discussion? Yes.
Dr. Jess Dolan, District 3. I came here today to speak to this. It kind of seems like I don't need to, but I'm going to anyway. I have several points of explanation strongly in favor of this article, and they come from my background in teaching Native American and Indigenous studies and working in environment at the college level, and also working with teenagers of all backgrounds for the last 13 years, including Native American teenagers. There's a growing awareness, I wrote it down so I don't forget anything here. There's a growing awareness that our national narrative about discovery of America by Columbus is inaccurate. In fact, Columbus was sent by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella to prospect for gold to support European empire. He is also known to have committed atrocities against Indigenous people. Further, the American Psychological Association has issued a statement that the promotion of Native American mascots and genocidal figures is damaging to Native American people. By extension, if the promotion of such figures are disrespectful and damaging to our Abenaki and Indigenous neighbors, then they are to us as well. On the plus side, should Columbus Day be changed to Indigenous Peoples Day, it accords us the opportunity to acknowledge and respect the Abenakis, the Wabanaki Confederacy, and Indigenous peoples in general on whose land we live. It creates a dedicated time in each year for public and school programming about the histories and contemporary realities of Native American and non-Native relationships and cultures. Many cities throughout the U.S. have already changed Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, and Canada has made Aboriginal Peoples Day in June a national holiday, on which there's great public educational and cultural programming. So, which could point out that this would be a great reason for us to invite local Native educators and artists to Brooks Memorial Library and to the schools to educate our town and its visitors about Native American heritage here. So I'm going to say that Brattleboro taking a leadership role in changing this holiday will be a move toward justice and appropriate education regarding our true collective histories and current realities in Vermont and in North America. Okay, thank you.
Further debate. Mr. Newman.
I support the intent of this motion. Columbus Day, as it stands now, is my least favorite holiday, largely because of the atrocities Columbus perpetrated on the Native Americans. My sentiment is that I would prefer it to be called Native American Day rather than Indigenous Peoples Day. Indigenous Peoples sounds too intellectual. To me, it sounds too vague. I'd rather have it be Native American Day. And to that end, I'll make a proposal, a friendly amendment, that the Columbus Day be changed to Native American Day. Thank you.
Is there a second to Mr. Newman's motion to substitute Indigenous Peoples Day with Native American Day?
Point of order.
Yes, Mr. Fallion.
Didn't Mr. Scholes present this? I mean, shouldn't he have to be consulted as to whether we accept the friendly amendment or not?
Well, this article was not an article that was put on the warning by the Select Board. This was one that was petitioned, but it still is amendable.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Dolan. Yeah, why not? Why not?
That would be Dr. Dolan, seeing as I worked very hard to achieve said doctorship. Just as a point of clarification or information, we should credit my friend Rich Holshoe for collecting over 400 signatures from the townspeople to get this article heard today. And Rich also works with, or maybe is the head, I don't know his exact title, but of the Vermont Commission on Native American Affairs. And Rich himself and myself, I've worked extensively with Native American communities, and Native American people prefer that it's called Indigenous Peoples Day. We also, in the United States, we have Native American Heritage Month. But for this particular day, there's been a lot of discussion all over North America about it, and they really prefer to have it be called Indigenous Peoples Day. So I'm not seconding this motion.
There is a motion to amend by Mr. Newman to change it to Native American Day, but I have not seen or heard a second. Is there a second? In the absence of a second, the motion to amend fails. Is there further debate with regard to Article 22? Mr. Barber?
I don't wish to debate the article. I'm in favor of the article as originally presented. I'm casting myself back to when I was a young, probably elementary school student. in Bennington. And I seem to remember that we were taught that one of the reasons America is called America is because there was a map maker from Italy, I believe, Amerigo Vespucci, a European. And we all know that it was the European peoples who came and took over what is now the United States of America. So I can understand why indigenous peoples might not like to have America in the name of this day. And I support them in that.
Further discussion on the motion? Ms. McLaughlin.
Elizabeth McLaughlin, District 3. I understand that Columbus Day was founded or established as an Italian-American holiday, and as an Italian-American, I fully support the name change.
The question is, shall the town advise the Select Board to proclaim the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples' Day in place of Columbus Day? Are you ready for that? Oh, Andy Davis. Oh, okay. Andy.
Andy Davis, District 3. There's a song that all the kids in Brattleboro, or at least all the ones I ever met, know. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It was a courageous thing to do, but someone was already here. The indigenous peoples were in Vermont in 1492, and the indigenous peoples are here today. People continue to study the language of the Abenaki, their stories are told, their songs are sung. We continue to study their culture. Perhaps more importantly, we still have more to learn from the culture, past and present, of our own indigenous people throughout the nation. This resolution is, I think, a recognition, an appreciation, and a celebration of Vermont's cultural history. I support it.
Ms. Atkinson.
Margaret Atkinson, District 2. Just real quick, I broadly support this change, but I would just like to caution us as people who inhabit now the whitest state in the nation that because we recognize history in this way, that the ongoing issues for Native people, both in the United States and Canada, Central America, are not solved just because folks have a day. And so I just would ask this body to also seek other ways where they themselves could help in real ways to help this country at least look at Native people now, what they need now, and how we here can do something today for the people here today, especially the kids.
Further discussion. The question is, shall the town advise the Select Board to proclaim the second Monday of October as Indigenous Peoples' Day in place of Columbus Day? Are you ready for that question? If so, all those in favor, please rise. You may be seated. All those opposed, please rise. And you've unanimously approved that resolution. That concludes, if I'm counting right, Article 22 and the warned portion of the meeting. We now turn to Article 23 to transact any other business that may lawfully come before the meeting. And the chair would recognize or point out that this portion of the meeting is non-binding, but as our town charter states, it is a source of ideas, proposals, and comments for our school board and for our select board and generally for our citizens. Before we get going, I believe Mr. Gartenstein has a resolution that he would like to, or at least a statement that he would like to make. Mr. Gartenstein.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I actually have two resolutions. The first one is as follows. Whereas Richard DeGray has served as a member of the Brattleboro Select Board for 8 years, from 2006 to 2013 and 2016 to 17, including service as the board's chair. And whereas Mr. DeGray served 4 years on the BUHS board from 1996 to 2000, and whereas Mr. DeGray has served on a series of related committees and committed himself tirelessly to the betterment of the town of Brattleboro and the lives of its residents, now therefore be it resolved that Brattleboro Town Meeting thanks Richard DeGray for his service to the town. And then I have, please, a second resolution. Whereas Annette Cappy was appointed as Brattleboro Town Clerk in March 1989, and whereas Ms. Cappy continued faithfully to serve as Town Clerk for almost 28 years, and whereas in this role Ms. Cappy supervised dozens of elections, 41 town meetings, and has worked tirelessly to improve and support the lives of Brattleboro citizens, and has been recognized for her work on a statewide level, now therefore be it resolved that Brattleboro Town Meeting thanks Annette Cappy for her service to the town.
The chair would recognize Ms. O'Connor.
Thank you very much. I'm going to read something, but I'm going to take the liberty while I have the mic to ad-lib a little bit. Today is David Gartenstein's last meeting.
Ever.
No. I didn't want to say that. His last meeting as chair of the board, and he's been chair for the last 4 years, and I've had the honor and pleasure to serve as the vice chair for the last 4 years under David. And anybody who watches the select board meetings sees that the meetings run smoothly, and that's in large part to the work that David does behind the scenes that nobody sees. And I think today, you recognize, I think everything went smoothly here, and a lot of that is because of David. And I want to thank him. It's been a pleasure working with him, and I appreciate the respect that he has shown me, and I'm going to miss working with you. That being said, I'm going to read a resolution. Whereas David Gartenstein has served on the Brattleboro Select Board from 2011 to 2017, and whereas Mr. Gartenstein has served as chair of the board for 4 years, leading the town through times of challenges and opportunities, including a successful search for a town manager, the siting of a skateboard park, the implementation of the pay-as-you-throw trash recycling program, and the resolution of our more than 30-year-old police fire facilities project. And whereas David Gartenstein has served as a town meeting representative, as chair of the Development Review Board, as a member of the Traffic Safety Committee, Capital Grants Review Board, and Rental Housing Improvement Program Loan Committee. And whereas David Gartenstein has served 2.5 years on the Town School Board and 3 years on the Brattleboro Union High School Board, And whereas David Gartenstein has served the people of the town with professionalism, fairness, and with a sense of humor, all the while acting with the best interest of the town at heart, now therefore be it resolved that this town meeting, on its own behalf and on behalf of the entire town, thanks David Gartenstein for his many years of dedicated service to the town of Brattleboro.
Is there other business? Ms. McLaughlin.
Elizabeth McLaughlin, District 3. I'm a member of BASIC, the skate park committee, and I thought you'd all like an update on our progress this past year. First of all, I'd like to thank this body and this Select Board for their generous contribution of $20,000 in 2015. And since last year, we have successfully secured the permits necessary to build the skate park at the new location at Living Memorial Park. And that consists of a modification to the park's Act 250 permit and also the required stormwater management construction permit. The skate park has previously received a DRB approval for the project. And now that we have all the permits, we're ready to build. Construction time is a matter of months. All we need now is additional funds. We have raised approximately $100,000 towards this goal. We need another $130,000. Once the money is raised, construction can begin. And I would ask every person here if they could see their way to donate to the skate park. We have kicked off a new fundraising plan with crowdsourcing fund drive at the U-Caring site linked to the BASIC website. There's also a video provided to BASIC by Mondo Media, which shows the tremendous potential for skaters in the Brattleboro area. I call your attention to the U-Caring site at the BASIC website, which is www.brattleboroskatepark.com. And you can also join our Facebook page, which is Friends of Brattleboro Skate Park. BCTV also has a nice show about the skate park. BASIC is grateful to have all the support we've had over so very many years. We are excited that the final phase has begun, and we look forward to your continued support. Additional contributions can also be mailed to the skate park through the Brattleboro Recreation and Parks Department /BASIC at Post Office Box 513, Brattleboro, Vermont, 05302. Please tell your friends and your neighbors and any other supporters in the area that once we get the money, we can build, and the town will have a lovely, wheel-friendly park. Thank you.
Mr. Siegel.
I am Siegel, District 1. I just wanted to speak in recognition of one of our members. Don Webster has been a longtime member. He's not here today because he's suffered a rather debilitating illness. He's been a contributor to this body in so many significant ways, and to the town in other ways beyond this. I always look forward to his thoughtful considerations of articles and comments that often swayed my opinions. And I just wanted to say something in his honor and in recognition of him. And I hope that there's a broad opinion that's similar to mine.
I'm sure Don's watching, so we'll say hi. Mr. Dimes.
this a good time to bring up the motion that I wanted to bring up earlier?
Sure. Any motion is okay at this point, as long as you understand it's non-binding, but by all means.
Of course. Kurt Dimes, District 2. The Select Board is overworked. For sure, there's lots and lots of work. It is an enormous ministerial task for all of you. So much so that in 2012, there was a regrettable, terrible error in passing important legislation, which the Select Board admitted not having time to read. The history, that was a terrible mistake, but it's a item in evidence that there is too much work on your job. So since I can't seem to get you more money so you can work harder, I propose this to reduce your workload. Historically, the Select Board has been in charge of all the public meetings. And that stood until 1959, when we went to our representative form of government. But since we have a representative form of government and a moderator now, the Select Board no longer has the job of supervising the meetings. But by error and tradition, they remain at the front of the meetings as they are in most of the other town meetings around Vermont. Their proper charge, according to the charter, and Mr. Fisher, I'm sure, will correct me if I have it wrong, the charge of the Select Board is to be entrusted with the general affairs and property of the town, except in the cases where that is given to another office. And the charter goes on to list several, well, dozens of chores, like making sure the sidewalks are in good condition and staffing the police force and so forth. And they do not have a charge of supervising this meeting, and they do not have a charge of providing guidance, commentary, new ideas, or proposals to the town. I will read from the charter briefly, if I find it. The Select Board shall have the general oversight of the affairs and property of the town, not committed by law to the care of any particular officer. For guidance, ideas, proposals, this body in general, is entrusted with those things. Quoting again from the charter, the representative town meeting consists of up to 140 elected officers. It is a guiding body for the town and a source of ideas, proposals, and comments. That's our job. And my comments now should be of interest especially to new members who aren't used to the traditional supplicant position we have before the Select Board. By habits, the Select Board is closer to the moderator. Their comments are quickly recognized, and the moderator quickly gives them his attention and the turns to speak. They have their own microphones. They do not have to stand up to speak. They do not have to walk anywhere to speak. But the general body has all those restrictions on its speech. We are, in effect, second-class representatives here, and there is no term in the charter whatsoever to support this two-tier system. So especially the younger members will be sensitive because, well, the older ones are just used to it. And I think now that the work that the Select Board has been doing in leading the meeting and coming up with proposals to a slight degree should be more often taken by us. Old and new members here have the responsibility of providing proposals and guidance to the town. We are the elders, and that is the responsibility here. I hope we can take it up we should take up that responsibility because that's what the charter says. That's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Is there further questions to come, or comments, or resolutions to come before the meeting? Mr. Harvey.
George Harvey, District 3. I have a motion. This is slightly different than the one that's in the printed sheet that many of you got. I move that the Brattleboro Representative Town Meeting express its concern that the federal government is ignoring the health and well-being of its citizens, violating the constitutional guarantees of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, violating our right to a government that represents its citizens, concerned that these acts may involve collusion with a foreign hostile power, and that for that reason the identities and actions of the parties responsible should be investigated and, as it is found fitting, prosecuted for treason against the United States and crimes against humanity. Mr. Moderator, I would like to speak to this.
Is there a second to Mr. Harvey's motion? You may speak to it, Mr. Harvey.
According to the World Health Organization, another person dies of problems associated with outdoor air pollution about every 10 seconds. The problem arises from our use of fossil fuels. Our health here in Vermont is at risk. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development of Air Pollution in the United States cost the country $500 billion in 2010. The American Lung Association in California said the medical costs associated with the use of fossil fuels in Vermont for transportation alone comes to $330 million per year. That is $480 per person, mostly masked in medical, insurance, and taxes. According to the Arbor Day Foundation, nearly the entire state of Vermont is in a different hardiness zone than it was in 1990, meaning that it's about 10 degrees warmer on the coldest winter nights. This has allowed increased numbers of deer ticks, bringing us Lyme disease. The change in climate is almost certainly due to our use of fossil fuels. Our environment is at risk, and with it, the well-being of future generations. According to the Royal Society of Protection of Birds, we've lost about 73% of our seabird populations in the last 60 years. According to the World Wildlife Fund, we have lost about 60% of our wildlife populations worldwide in the last 40 years. And we are seeing another species go extinct about every 10 minutes. Most of the losses associated with the use of fossil fuels. The geographic ranges for moose and ticks have never overlapped, so moose have no instinct to groom for ticks. Now, with climate change brought about mostly by fossil fuels, dead moose are being found with upwards of 60,000 winter ticks on them. According to an article in the Boston Globe, over 70% of the moose calves in New Hampshire and Maine are killed by winter ticks. This is just one example of the many problems of climate change. Flood insurance claims in the United States came to $82 million in 1978. With the growth of population and inflation, we could expect that to rise by a factor of 6 since then. But it has not. It has gone up by a factor of 42. This is according to data from the U.S. federal government. A major factor has been increased costs is climate change. The current federal administration is clearly focused on benefit of big businesses of or associated with the fossil fuels industry. These industries put hundreds of millions of dollars into buying supportive congressional seats. Their election goals appear to have been supported covertly by the government of Russia, which has been for years hostile to our country and gets 65% of its export revenue from the sale of fossil fuels. I would note that Richard Painter, the White House ethics attorney for George W. Bush, refers to the possible connections between the Trump administration and Russia as potentially treasonous. Thank you.
Further discussion on Mr. Harvey's resolution. The resolution, as I have it, Mr. Harvey, is that the Brattleboro Representative Town Meeting expresses concern that the federal government is ignoring the health and well-being of its citizens, violating the constitutional guarantees of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, violating our rights to government that represents its citizens' concern that these acts may involve collusion with hostile foreign powers, and that for that reason, the identities and actions of the parties responsible should be investigated, and as it is found fitting, prosecuted for treason against the United States and crimes against humanity. Are you ready for that question? This is a non-binding, yes.
Phelan Muller, District 2. Just as a point of document accuracy, the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are not guaranteed in the Constitution. It's part of the Declaration of Independence, which is just that. So it's incorrect.
All right. All those in favor of Mr. Harvey's resolution as just read, please rise. Did you have a question, Ted?
I'd like to propose an amendment.
I'm sorry. All right. Go ahead, Mr. Montgomery.
If this is something we're going to vote on and that it might be made public to a broader audience, I would like that correction to be made in this. So I'd like to offer a friendly amendment that it be referenced.
All right, unless there is objection, the chair will make that correction. Let's see where I can do it. Constitutional, violating the guarantees of liberty. I'm just taking out the word Constitution. All right, having made that change with no objections, the question is now, all those in favor of Mr. Harvey's resolution, please rise. You may be seated. Those opposed, please rise. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it, and you adopted Mr. Harvey's resolution. Further, yes, sir. All the way in the back. Yes. No, this is under, yes, other business.
Richard Evers, District 3. I wasn't planning to, when I came here, say anything about this, but I was moved by Michael Bosworth's account of Paul Cameron's work, and I asked him at the break, I said, has the town officially thanked Paul for his work? And I also asked him, I went to Antioch's master's program in environmental studies along with Paul at the time, so I've known him quite a while and always appreciated, like a lot of people in this room, his work. And I said to Michael, what's he doing down there in North Carolina? How's he doing? And he said, okay, but last I heard he was still looking for work. So I wondered, and I reread on page 18, thanks to Michael pointing it out to me. I just want to quickly, I know people want to get out of here, but Paul quietly, this is from page 18 of our booklet. Paul quietly, efficiently, and selflessly walked the walk of addressing climate change and energy cost issues during his time here. Paul's contribution to the town will already have saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they will continue to pay dividends for years to come. And I was just wondering if, as a spontaneous thought here, that the town, these lovely resolutions that thanking David Gartenstein and others which are whereas you've done this and whereas you've done that, and the town shows its appreciation. I wonder if it might help Paul get a job down there a little easier if the town officially went a little further than this page 18 summary that Michael submitted, and that the town through the select board, I guess, did one of those whereas resolutions that's really impressive, and would thank Paul and help him get a job down there.
I would make the suggestion that that is something that could be formally drawn up by the select board if they so chose to do, and then adopted at a select board meeting. Does that make sense, Mr. Allen?
Well, I was thinking that maybe the Energy Committee.
Energy Committee? All right.
Except,
something up for us.
well, I didn't put it because I am spontaneous and a little scattered. I didn't put it in the form of a motion, but I think as long as everybody's here at town meeting, can I move that we publicly thank Paul with a whereas resolution, citing some of the things that I just read about saving the town hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that I don't have the wording, of course, but I would put it to a vote here in the town meeting that we advise the select board to do that and to send that on to him. So that would be a motion.
Okay, that's fine, Mr. Evers. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Evers has moved, and it has been seconded that we publicly thank Paul Cameron for his work and draft an appropriate resolution so indicating that thanks. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor of Mr. Evers' resolution, please rise. You may be seated. Any opposed? And your resolution has been unanimously approved. Mr. Evers, thank you. Is there further business to come? Mr. Maciel.
Tim Maciel, District 1. In reference to Mr. Dimes' last statement, first I'd like to say that I have tremendous respect for the work that the Select Board does for the town. But Mr. Dimes does remind us that this is a town representative meeting. And this brings me back to work I've done as a faculty development meeting developer, where faculty who prefer to think of themselves as sages on the stage are tremendously against any reconfiguration of seating arrangements in the classroom. I've spent the last about 9 hours looking at the faces of the select board members. It's a good-looking group, so it hasn't been a painful exercise. But I have spent the last 9 hours mainly looking at the backs of the heads of my fellow members' town rep meetings. I know from experience that the seating configuration has a profound impact on the participation and the dynamics of the discussion. So my suggestion is that at the next town meeting, we have a series of concentric circles, more or less like you see in national debates, town meeting debates. This I think we see each other on the TV monitor, but seeing each other's faces and seeing the reactions of my fellow town meeting reps for various issues would be profoundly important and would put the locus of the discussion back to the town representatives as it should be. So it's no small matter. Seating arrangements, it's no small matter. It reflects a lot, which I won't get into, but it does really impact democratic processes. So that is my suggestion.
It's a suggestion. Mr. McElveen.
Harold McElveen, District 1. I'd like to make a whereas motion that this body here, the people that we put and decide that we put aside $5,200 a year to cultivate and support or support businesses, places that are helping the artists in this town, and after-school programs for kids wanting to take lessons. I wasn't born here, but how I took ownership here, it was through the arts. And one of the things I started was a battle of the bands, and did some research, and the Smithsonian Magazine calls Brattleboro one of the top 15 places for artists in the country. I might have missed it. I think I heard one thing say that this is not all part of the whereas motion, I'm sorry. But that there was like once a week that was set aside for the arts at school. So I was thinking $100 a week we could put aside for after school lessons, or to pick a business that is, because that's the other thing. I think we all are affected by the arts here. This is one of the most artistic friendly towns I've ever seen. I didn't really see any of that in the budget at all. So I'm just like, I'm saying, whereas us being a progressive town supporting energy, and I believe that art is energy. I think it's a lot, but we are the mirrors of society. We put in $5,200 a year to cultivate and seek out businesses, people, entities that will help the kids and people who, especially the kids in the schools, or to learn anything in the arts. So $5,200 a year in the arts, or anything that this body deems not ridiculous. Thank you.
Mr. McElveen, that sounds... Mr. McElveen, that may be, and it sounds like a great idea, except that during this portion of the meeting, what we do is not binding, and we cannot do any official appropriations. What we can do, and what the purpose of this part of the meeting is to have an interaction amongst us citizens and with our school board and with our select board, for the purpose of giving them some direction of what this body would like to see this town look like. And because we are not in a position at this point of the meeting to make a specific appropriation, I would suggest that what you do is we simply make this as a suggestion to the board for further consideration in their budget this year or for next year. Maybe we can get a little bit of feedback from the board. Mr. Scholes.
I'd encourage Mr. McElveen to find someone that's in the Arts Committee, and I'll bet there's some of them here, and work with the Arts Committee to bring that proposal.
Other issues, Molly Burke.
Molly Burke, District 2. We heard a very inspirational invocation by Mr. Wheelock, and I would love to see that in print somewhere, or perhaps on the town website, or perhaps in next year's report on this meeting, because I would love to read those words again. I want to thank him for that. And another thing I want to let the body know is that about a month ago, we had a wonderful reading of a resolution on behalf of Annette Cappy in the House of Representatives, and presented her with the resolution, and her whole family was there, and a number of town officials made the trip up to Montpelier, and it was another way that we could honor her. So I just wanted to let that be known.
Is there any other business to come before the meeting? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor of adjourning, please rise. You may be seated. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you all very much.